what's going on? Welcome to Dharma Time. I'm your host, the Dharma Guy, here with the Tube Doctor. And I'm laughing because we're doing a second take now.
That's twice, 2 weeks in a row.
Twice. Anyway, so let's get back on track here.
All right.
Anyway, what I was saying.
Today's topic.
Oh, today's topic. Yes. Okay, so what it was is I was getting annoyed.
Okay.
Because I was like, what's the point, right? We're all getting to these discussions and these arguments for some people and debates or whatever it may be.
Right.
And for what? You know, does it really matter if you and I agree or disagree on anything? Do we make any rules? Do we make any legislature? Is the world going to change if you and I agree or disagree? No, it's really not. And so all these debates that people are getting into, I think all it's doing is just creating disdain amongst some people, you know. And the one thing I started to realize is it appears to me, now granted I can't speak for the entire world,
right,
or the whole country, I guess.
Right.
It appears to me that the middle ground seems to be going away. It seems like people are just drawing lines in the sand. If you're not on my team, then screw you. And there's no more like ability to agree to disagree or to like compromise or to try to understand the other person's perspective.
Yeah.
So for instance, you know, what I've kind of the analogy I've been using to explain it to friends and stuff, people I've been talking to about all this stuff, is that it appears to me that, you know, the people at the top of the hill, and you can define that however you choose.
I was going to say, who's on the top?
You can define it however you choose.
Okay.
The people at the top of the hill,
are
living their life, doing their thing, making decisions based upon being at the top of the hill. Okay. And don't seem to have a very good grasp on what it's like for the people who live at the bottom of the hill. And then the people at the bottom of the hill, they're living their lives and doing their thing, looking up at the people at the top of the hill, but don't really have a good grasp of what it's like to live and maintain a life at the top of the hill.
Okay.
And neither one of them are really seeing the other's perspective, and neither one of them are trying really. They're all kind of just telling the people at the bottom of the hill are yelling at the people at the top of the hill, telling them on why it's so different up there than down here, and vice versa. And so and so for me, it's like they're spending their time doing that, which to me I think is the wrong thing. I think they should be spending their time trying to understand the other ones and make it together, make it better for everybody, as opposed to just I'm right and this is why you're wrong. You just don't get it.
What about the people like me that live on the hill?
Live on the hill?
Yeah, I'm on the hill.
You're halfway up the hill.
I get beat up by both sides.
Yeah, we heard that yesterday.
Yeah, that was a great great sentence.
Yeah, that was a great conversation.
We can't get into that one though.
No. Anyways, so that, like I said, that brought up empathy to me.
Yeah.
I realized that I think that it seems like empathy is kind of a dirty word these days almost. It's like such a foreign idea. Like when I see people posting or I'm talking to people, this idea that my opinion is anything other than fact, or you know, my opinion is the only one that matters, and if you don't see it my way, then you're wrong, seems to be pervasive right now. Yeah. And I think that's a problem, right?
Or if you hang around people that only have your opinion.
Yeah, you have this little microcosm, right? And you're surrounded by people who feel the same way you do. Right. Then you start to think that the whole world is like that. Right. And you don't realize, like, hold up, there's a whole other population out there that doesn't feel the way you do. Yeah. And they feel like they're just as right as you feel. And I'm guilty of it. I don't want to act like I'm from the outside looking in, because I'm guilty of it in various different aspects, right? Like, I mean, just the niche market that we're in, even in the addiction world. Right. I had different opinions on addiction prior to meeting everybody and getting into this world and doing things. And that perspective changed because I saw it from a different viewpoint.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But even something that we all do, and we've done multitude of different relationship shows. Right. In a relationship, I mean, we all have some form of a relationship, whether it be romantic or friendship or whatever. If you don't start to kind of come together as a team and see it from the other person's shoes, you're going to be fighting constantly. Like in my own house, man. Right. One of the biggest hurdles we had to cross as a unit together as a family was I had to realize that my way isn't the only way.
Right.
And she had to realize her way isn't the only way. And so I think that's kind of where, to me, that's the epitome of empathy. I think that is the definition of empathy, is relating to somebody else's pain or perspective. Right. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, I think you're in a blended family, so I think that's, you have a cool, I guess, an entry point into the whole idea, because you had to be more accepting than most. You had to accommodate more than most. You had to blend I mean, just the word blended families is everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to actually figure out how to assimilate, right? Okay, now I'm using your words.
Assimilate. Look at that.
What the hell
Nice
am I doing?
little $3 word, man.
Yeah, let me get away from those words.
Spell it.
No. But you had to compromise.
Yeah.
A lot more than most.
I did.
And I think, when we're talking about empathy, I think there's a lot of people not compromising right now.
Yeah.
But not even compromising with their own self, their own sanity, their own ability to be happy, right?
Yeah.
Because I think we get so stuck in our belief system.
We do.
That we refuse to listen at all and think that because I feel it and believe it and because these are my life experiences, then this must be true. And this is the only truth that matters.
Yes.
And I think that's what gets us in trouble.
I think that's where we're at right now. Is I think a lot of people.
I think we've always been there. I just think now we're all listening.
Well, we have a bigger voice.
We're listening a little bit more.
We have a bigger voice.
Who's we?
With internet and everything else. We
okay.
have more
Every individual?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have more of an ability now to put my thoughts for the world to see as opposed to just the people at my water cooler.
Yeah, for real.
But no, I agree, man. I think that's part of it is we get into this idea that, we all have our own opinion. And once again, that opinion is based upon our life's history coming up to this point.
Right.
And so that in and of itself means that some of these thoughts and views are going to be very deeply ingrained with us because we're going to reach back on our own experiences as justifications of why we feel that way.
I agree.
And so when I believe that we're very passionate, we really truly believe in them, but the problem is not everybody takes that second, right? Like this idea that I've had to learn myself even.
Okay.
When I start conversations, there's somewhere in the back of my head, I always ask myself, could I be wrong? Because maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're just not the end-all, be-all.
Right.
But I don't think a lot of people are doing that. I think they approach it as in no matter what, you're wrong because you don't agree with the way I agree.
Right.
And I'm right because look at my life. Look at all the things I've been through.
Right.
But then the problem is the other person is saying the exact same thing.
Right.
It's like, hold up. No, I'm right because look at all the things I've been through.
And quoting different sources.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we think we're right based on the sources that we trust in.
Yeah.
Right? So at least right now.
Yeah.
And I can't help but not think political. I'm not going to get political on you, Trinity, but on the topic, since it's what inspired you, people tend to quote the sources they most trust in.
Yeah.
Without quoting the other sources. And if you would quote your source, they would look at it and go like, "Oh, but that's that channel or that's that news source.
Sure.
They're wrong."
Right.
So there's no win situation.
No, and there's no compromise.
There's definitely no compromise.
There's no like, okay, maybe you've got a point, and this idea of you're right. No, you're both right.
Right.
You're both right and you're both wrong.
I just don't like that it's cool to be disrespectful right now, or it's cool to not listen right now. It's cool to judge before action. I don't like that.
I don't like that either. But the other thing that on that same kind of a topic, the other thing I'm realizing too is you're almost considered weak these days for listening, right? Because that was one of the things that they talked about, and not to keep it political, I guess, and I don't want to go all the way down that road.
Empathy, yeah.
But like when Obama, his approach was diplomacy, trying to talk to people.
Is that what it was?
A lot of people looked down on that. Because he was saying, hey, I'm not going to just have these hard lines. I don't care what he actually did. What he ran on was saying, look, we're going to have I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to negotiate with them or whatever. Whereas there's other people who thought that you don't negotiate, you just do this. And he was considered weak for that, for a lot of people. And so that's politically. But in real life, I think people were considered that way. Like, there's been situations in my life that have taken place, and let's say somebody was rude or whatever.
Right.
A lot of people feel that, turning the other cheek only gets you hit harder kind of a thing. Like if somebody did something rude, then you need to like completely go off on them. And it's like, hold up.
Well, every movie Hollywood puts out proves that, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's what's popular.
I mean, really, right?
Like there was a story not too long ago, and I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I know bits and pieces, but it's enough to talk about, I guess.
Right.
There's a guy out there, there's a video that's going around starting to become viral that his son was being bullied.
Yeah.
And instead of going and getting into this boy's face and everything else, he asked the kid like why. He started talking to the kid and realized that the kid had like a pretty bad home life, didn't have any money.
Of course.
So then he took the kid out, bought him some clothes, and like they talked and they become really good friends. Now him and his son, and so that was an example of what I'm talking about. Like a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people would have gone the route of like, well, don't bully my kid. What's wrong with you? And started fights over it. But instead, he tried to empathize and say, no kid just grows up and says, I want to be mean to everybody.
Right.
So if he is being mean, why? Let me understand what it is he's going through. What's causing this person to do this? And then he started to realize, you know what, this kid's going through some difficult times that I might be in a position to help him learn from or help him cope with,
right?
And then turn that around. That's empathy, dude. That's not just you're wrong, and by all means, the kid was wrong. He was bullying his other kid,
right?
But he didn't stop there. He listened, he understood, empathized, and then took him out, and now the whole situation's completely changed. But I think that...
But a lot of times it begins with a smackdown, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
I mean, I don't know many bullies that stop being bullies without some sort of smackdown, either emotionally or physically.
Yeah, I mean...
And then you can empathize.
They have to have a learning moment, a teaching
That's
moment.
what I'm saying. It's almost like you got to have a pause. Right? To create like a shake in the whole action. And then you can empathize. But at first, sometimes you just have to stop the beating, and how you stop the beating is you got to fight back for yourself.
I believe in that particular case, the father just went and started talking to him. So I think in that case, I think the smackdown would be the father intervening.
But that's probably not the norm.
That's my point. Yeah. It's not the norm, but it should be.
Is it effective? I mean, I'm just asking.
In that case,
is it effective? I mean,
it's anecdotal, obviously.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And it's an outlier.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
I'm going to say I've been the person, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, and you piss me off, I'm going to piss you off more. And I've also been the person that tries to be a little bit more understanding and empathetic.
Right.
I've gotten much different results when I've made that mental switch.
I guess what I'm thinking is I'm thinking about some of my high school friends. Mm-hmm. I made friends with a whole group of guys based on me trying to fight all of them.
Right.
That's how we became friends.
Yeah, I've had friends to this
day.
You
know what I mean? In other words, most of my friends that I've ever had are because we fought.
Yeah.
Right? It started out of some sort of conflict, and then, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm just talking. Yeah. I mean, I'm going anecdotal as well. Sure. In other words, we fought, and then it's like you respect each other's like sticking up for whatever, and then it's like, all right, well, you're cool.
Well, I think
because you're not wimps.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I think the end result
you both kind of like that you're each willing to stand for something.
That might have been the catalyst.
Yeah.
But what the solution was actually listening and talking to each other. The catalyst might have been, some sort of a fight.
Is that what it was? Oh, I thought it was the drugs.
Well, you didn't mention that one. But that was the end result, right? We come together at some point. We start paying attention to how similar you interact with one another.
Exactly, the similarities.
What the catalyst for that is, who knows? I mean, that's neither here nor there. Right. But I know for me that when I reached a point in my life where I was like, you know what, I want to try this whole spirituality thing. I'm going to try peace, love, and hair grease kind of a thing.
Right.
Not only did I feel differently, but my interactions with people were much different. Like, I've had, quote unquote negative or bad things happen to me since I've kind of transitioned into more of a spiritual mindset. Mm-hmm. But the difference is my response to them hasn't led to even more drastic actions. You know what I mean? I'm a little bit more even keel now, which means that my approach changes the result a little bit. In other words, they don't escalate like they used to. And I don't walk away with the same kind of emotions that I used to.
Right.
And part of that is because I try to empathize, right? Like, a perfect example. I've done groups, right, in the addiction world.
Right.
The old me, prior to spirituality, is in a group, running a group, trying to talk. Somebody in that group starts to go back and forth with me a little bit.
Right.
They start to get a little bit animated, and they're upset, and they're trying to prove points. The pre-spiritual me we probably would have come to blows. Like, what? Like, we would have gotten into it, and it would have gotten ugly very quickly, and nothing positive would have come out of that, most likely.
Right.
The post-spiritual me, running those same groups, my first thought isn't, who the hell is this dude, and why are you getting up on my face? My first thought is, what are you going through right now? Mm-hmm. My first thought is, like, dude, I can't imagine what it is that you have to go through that turns you into a situation now where you think this is the only way to handle it. Mm-hmm. You're telling me that you're hurting right now. I get that. Why? What can I do to help you?
Mm-hmm. So you're saying you're empathizing at that moment.
I do.
Okay.
Instead of saying you're wrong, which in all accounts he is wrong. Right. You're not supposed to get up and shout at somebody or do whatever because you're in a group setting. This person's here to help.
Right.
It's completely wrong. But I turned that into a teaching moment for not only him but everybody in the room by my way of handling it. By saying, look, I'm going to empathize and understand what you're going through. And I talked to him. We have this big breakthrough. And to me, that's the difference. When you approach things that way, more gets done, I think.
All right.
But I don't see enough of that these days. And I think that that's what we need to spend our time on. And I think that part of those problems is number one, we don't realize we're on the same team, right?
Right.
I know we joked about it earlier. But to me, I think we're all on the same team in the sense of we're all trying to be happy. We have different definitions of what happiness is on how to get there. But the same goal of I want to be happy. even in the political world, I genuinely believe that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party both want what's best for the country. Mm-hmm. I just think they disagree on what that is and how to get there.
I'm just tired of people saying that we're more divided now than ever, because I think we've always been divided. It's just now we're talking about it.
Well, not only that, but now there's more attention on it.
Yeah, we've always been divided.
We had a civil war, for God's sakes.
Yeah, we have never not been divided. That's why we have a two-party system.
No, I agree.
And it always flips back and forth. But
that's that whole hyperbole thing that we're in these days.
No, but I think to call us more divided now because a certain party is in power, I think is a high manipulation, and I think it just needs to shh. That's
sure.
If you're going to empathize, how about empathizing with the fact that it's time to just shh. If you're going to be accepting, if you're going to talk acceptance and you're going to say you listen and that you accept other people, then shut up and listen and accept other people. And I think it is kind of off balance in the respect that there's people like me that feel very unheard. I'm in that middle, right? So I'm trying to be empathetic here and try to get both sides, and I'm trying to do it because now here's election time, right? Today's election time, and I'm trying to understand. All right, what are you doing for me? What are you doing for me?
All right.
But I have to personalize it because at the end of the day, my vote is for me.
Sure.
Right. Whereas some people would say, no, my vote is for what's better for the country. It was like, let's not get so godly here.
I don't think either one of those are necessarily inherently wrong.
I'm not saying wrong. I'm just saying vote what's best for you.
Yeah.
So you shut up and stop crying. Because apparently what's best for the country sometimes may not be what's best for you, but you're thinking you're being godly, and you're saying, I'm doing what's best for people. No, vote for what's best for you.
Sure.
Right? I mean, I think part of
empathy I could argue that what's
is
best.
Be empathetic with yourself. I guess what I'm saying is you should also relate to you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you think you're being empathetic for others, no, what you're actually doing is you're playing a martyr.
Right.
And in doing so, you're absolutely blinded and you're not listening.
Yeah, I can't argue against that at all. I mean, I could argue the case that being there for other people is helping yourself in the sense of, like what I used to say in the groups, right? If I'm running a group and if I'm able to help just 3 of those people achieve some sort of a happiness, isn't that 3 less people now that are putting in negative energy in the world that my kids have to grow up in? So in that sense, the greater good is for my good.
But in that job, you are there to help others.
Correct.
You're not there to help you. If you're going into a group and you're going, hey, Louie, I'm doing your group because I'm going to help myself.
Yeah.
Well, then
some bad motivation.
Yeah, it's right. Not a great example.
But to me, I think that kind of we are on the same team though. I think that's something that gets lost.
Yeah. But I think but same team means like
we're all Americans, man.
Be you, right?
Yeah.
Like stand up for your belief system, not the manipulated stuff. And to know that we're all being manipulated. I think what's important
That's a big one.
is that we're all being manipulated.
Yes.
We're all being conned, we're all being lied to by both sides.
Yes.
So do what's best for you, not what people are telling you what's best for you. And I think that's the important part here, right?
Yeah, I agree. But for me, I think that's where the to take it away from politics for a minute.
Yeah, let's take it away.
The empathy, I see empathy. I see moments for empathy every day.
Right.
I'm talking like trivial examples, like the person that cuts you off in traffic.
Right.
Right. Oftentimes the person driving, somebody cuts them off. Their first thought is frustration.
Personalized.
It's like, why'd you cut me off? Well, what's wrong with this person? I want to catch up to him.
Trying to kill me.
Yeah. But what they don't realize, what they got to stop and remove themselves for a second and say, hold up. I'd be willing to put quite a bit of money on the line that says that person didn't leave their house this morning. Mm-hmm. I'm going to use you as an example. Didn't leave their house this morning and say, whew, I can't wait till I'm on my way to work today. Because I know Louis drives on 44. And about at 11:38 p.m. or a.m., he's going to be there.
Yeah.
And boy, let me tell you, I'm going to cut him off.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I've had this on the calendar for a week now. I don't think they're doing that, man. I think I'm late. I want to get to work.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do what I got to do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get over here in traffic. They're probably thinking that you're going slow on purpose in front of them. And it's just all me. It's like, hold up, dude. It's not about you. It's not personal at all. Everybody's kind of just doing their own thing. Everybody's trying to get to where they got to get.
Yeah.
And so that's where the empathy comes into play. Is like, was that person really trying to do that to you? Right. No, man. They're trying to. What if you have no clue if that person just got a phone call that like their mom is dying at the moment and they're trying to hurry up and get there.
Right.
And so they're not worried about cutting you off. They're just trying to. Their whole mindset is, oh my God, I gotta get to where I gotta be.
Right.
one of the examples I used, especially in the groups for the kids, right, when we used to do the pay program, trying to get them to understand it's not personal. I would always ask them this analogy. I would say, you go to, let's say, 7-Eleven, right? And I don't know why that's just the one I use. You go to the gas station. How about that?
Right.
Because 7-Eleven's not paying it.
They're not paying us.
7-Eleven, if you want to pay us, by all means. You go to the gas station, and you open the door for somebody, and they give you this dirty look and, like, shrug you off when they walk in.
Yep.
Would that irritate you? And of course, they all say yes. I'm like, why? Because why they do that? I try to open the door for them, everything else. Okay. It's the same scenario, but you find out that person, prior to that gas station trip, got fired yesterday. Their house burnt down last night. Their wife left them, and their dog died. Would you feel any differently? They all said, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Well, because you know the story. Exactly. But that's just, everybody has a story. You just don't know it. And so you personalize stuff and take it to, but no, man, that's where empathy comes in. I'm not saying that the person was right for giving you the cold shoulder, brushing you off. What I'm saying is you got to have a little bit more empathy to understand there might be a reason behind it that's not you.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. We're all on the same team in the sense that we're all just trying to get through the day, dude. We're all just trying to be happy. We're all trying to make the best decisions that we can that with the information that we have. And so that doesn't inherently make you a bad person because you don't agree or you don't have the same information that I have.
Right.
And I think if we were to take that approach, I think, our daily life would be a lot different.
But I think that's why I'm more upset with leadership when leadership says, when they're projecting a thing that we're not on the same team, that you're being attacked or you're being hurt or they're trying to do this to you. That's what frustrates me so much because that divisiveness starts with leadership. And so you can't change things by dividing your troops or by telling your people that you're being hurt and manipulated. We got to tell everybody we're all being hurt and we're all being manipulated. This is truly one people.
That's why we need a third party.
But you took it back political. I was trying to stay away from political.
Leadership, come on, that's political.
No, leadership as in like, all right, so like I'm going into the store and I open the door for somebody and they don't say, I used to get bothered and I used to say, you're welcome.
Me too.
I used to yell it real loud. Well, now
that used to really irritate me.
It doesn't bother me because I taught my children, I taught myself by teaching my children that I'm opening the door because I choose to open the door. Yeah. Because to me, being polite is the right thing to do. I say, so when you hear people say, I respect people who respect me, or I treat people the way they treat me, I say, no, take a leadership position. You treat people the way you choose to treat people. Yeah. And not even the way you want to be treated. Just treat people the way you think is correct to treat them. That's it.
No, I agree.
Expecting nothing, demanding nothing.
You do it because it's the right thing.
Just do it because it's the right thing to do.
Don't do it for the payoff.
And trust me, as life proceeds, and the more difficult choices come up, and more difficult, complicated situations arise, you'll instinctually do some right things because you've trained yourself to do what's right, not based upon other people. Because when you do it based on other people's reactions or other people's motives or whatever, or other ulterior motives
that's
for you,
slippery slope right there.
Then what happens is that you're not doing things instinctually, and then you get the mind set up too much, and you're going to start messing up.
Yeah,
you're going to complicate life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
But you're touching on one of the things I have written down here.
I always do that.
You do,
I'm really good at that.
It's like we're in sync or something.
I love it.
And mind
Stop agreeing with me.
And mind you, what people don't even, I don't know if a lot of people even realize this, we don't really plan much. We just kind of turn the cameras on and go.
Right.
But anyways, the other one I had here written down was, people only seem to empathize sometimes with the same side.
Yes.
And that's when I notice a lot, right? Like, there's a lot of acceptance these days, right? There's a lot of acceptance. There's a lot of tolerance.
There's a lot of talk of acceptance and tolerance. Well, is that what you mean?
I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of tolerance and a lot of acceptance, a lot of like agreement, as long as you agree with me. If you don't agree with me, that all goes out the window.
Gone.
If you don't agree with me, then you're a horrible person. You're bad, and what's wrong with you? You're evil. You're what's wrong with society today.
Yep.
It's like, hold up, man. Like, and so for me, that was a conversation I actually had with somebody I know. This person I was talking to identifies as homosexual. Right. And they were getting frustrated with today's world and how things were going, and they were wearing like the gay pride stuff, whatever.
Right.
So I got in a conversation with them, and I asked them. They were very, 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 very upset and taken aback when Trump won and Pence being the vice president, and some of the things that they felt that Pence was for or against gay rights and stuff. Right. And so the talk we got into essentially was, I said, look, man, you know, their perspective was that the people who were not as progressive thinking on gay rights needed to just get over it, and this is where we're going.
Right.
I said, okay, but you only think that because you're on this side and the majority of society is on your side, so you're basically allowed to just make them do it without talking to them, without explaining things to them, without helping them understand why they should go. And I said, and I think that's part of the issue you're not seeing at the moment is you're no different than they were. Because at one point they were the bigger group and they didn't give gay rights at all. And they felt strongly about it. They felt a certain kind of way about it. And because somebody else disagreed with them, they just shoved them to the side. So my problem was like you're starting to become them. The same things that you're rallying against, that you're saying you want acceptance and everything else, well, you have to accept that not everybody thinks the way you think. Not everybody has the same belief system or was raised the same.
Right.
And the way you're going to help change that isn't by forcing them to change. You're going to change that by talking to them, let them understand and let them experience the other side of the tracks, if you will.
Right.
And that's what's going to bring unity. Otherwise, you're just drawing lines in the sand. And so I can't help but to think, like the conversation we got in yesterday about higher learning in college campuses and stuff. The idea, and this is probably going to be somewhat controversial for some people, but whatever.
Right.
The idea that somebody wouldn't be allowed to speak at a university blows my mind. You know, Berkeley pops up in my head because I know Berkeley's had a lot of protests, but the idea that we're accepting, we're tolerant, we're higher learning and everything else, but because we don't agree with you, you're not even going to be allowed to speak here. I understand the premise of we don't agree with your mindset and we think it's poison. We don't want to give you a pulpit to which to preach from.
Right.
However, they still have the right to be heard. You know, you at least hear them. And if you don't agree with them, then at least you know where your enemy's coming from, right?
Right.
But more importantly, they're going to feel heard, and it gives the opportunity for the door to open for some dialogue to happen. Because now I understand why you feel that way. Now that I understand why you feel that way, maybe I can approach you from a different perspective and say, look, man, this is why you could feel this way. You know, there's ways of explaining that. You know, it's like, to use my example of the gas station. You know, if I were to see somebody who is upset, you know, thank you, I could pull that person to the side because I know why they're angry because they feel like disrespected.
Right.
I could say, hey, man, what if that person, you know, I could help them understand that and then be like, oh, you know what? Yeah, you're probably right, man. And it immediately calms them down. But I wouldn't have known that unless I gave them an opportunity to express themselves. And so that's kind of what I mean is a sense of this tolerance stuff needs to go all the way around 360. Well, not just the ones you agree with.
I think the issue is that we all want someone to tolerate us, but we're not willing to tolerate someone else. I think that's the message that I'm hearing.
Yeah.
The message being pushed, and unfortunately, media does drive everything. I mean, we have to admit that media works, right? I mean, the only reason we know what the Golden Arches are because they spent billions and billions of dollars throughout all the years of our life letting us know what the Golden Arches are.
Yeah.
Right? The only reason we know what the King of Beers is because they've spent billions of dollars throughout our entire life telling us they're the King of Beers. So to disregard that being something that's true and therefore saying, I'm not manipulated, they can't sway me. That's just untrue.
Watch Century of the Self if you don't think you can be manipulated.
It's just untrue. It's just understand that we've all been manipulated since birth. And we've all been geared a certain way since birth based on who we are, what we are, our family, our region, our culture, our language. All of that has gone into thought. There's been think tanks trying to figure out how to best manipulate you exactly. You. Somebody's marketing you. And somebody, by the way, doesn't even care about you because you're not their demographic. Like somebody is saying, not that guy. Yeah. I don't care about 49-year-old Hispanic men that live in Florida. So to somebody, I'm like disregarded. But then when I'm watching a commercial, like I used to joke that when they started playing Led Zeppelin on Cadillac commercials, that's when I knew I was old. Right?
Right. Yeah.
As soon as they started playing music that I liked on a Caddy commercial, I realized, oh my God, I'm in Cadillac's radar.
Yep. They want you now.
All of a sudden, Cadillac gave a damn who I was.
Yeah.
Prior to that, Cadillac didn't give a damn about me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But now Cadillac gives a damn. So the fact that we don't admit that, the fact that we don't understand that everything that we feel is based on some sort of behind-the-scenes manipulation is sad, because if you really truly want to be empathetic, then look at someone who's saying something completely different than you and just listen and just respect them. And I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So many people, I think, feel that they're empathetic people because they're empathizing on somebody they feel that's being beaten up.
Yeah.
Look at the people that they're beating up, that you think are beating them up, and ask yourself, am I empathizing with them?
Exactly. And that's the true empathetic
Am
part.
I empathizing with the bully? Remember when you did, right here on Dharma Time, we did a show on the shooter down in South Florida.
Good plug. You can find that on YouTube /DharmaCon.
Right. That is a perfect example of were people empathizing with the shooter?
Yeah.
No.
No, they were compassionate, empathizing with all the kids and everything else.
Correct.
They weren't thinking about the trauma that shooter had to go through that would lead him to do that.
Correct. And that's not forgiving the action. That's not saying that the action was okay, justified in any way. It's just simply to become an empathetic person for real. You have to be able to look at all the sides, because there's a lot more of those that have yet to shoot a gun, that have yet to go into a school and shoot them up, that without some sort of process happening right now today,
some sort of intervention,
it's
going to happen.
It will happen again.
Absolutely.
And so we can't just look at those being bullied and defend them and then think it's okay to bully the bully.
Yeah.
We better understand the bully.
Yeah.
And respect that. Now, sometimes the real bully is the victim, or the ones that you think is the victim. And that's where your head is going to trip a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times right now, I keep on hearing that that's the bully up there. Like, even how you started off, you said the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
If you listen to the beginning of the show, and when Trinity said there's those on top of the mountain and then there's those on the bottom of the mountain not being heard, and if you thought you're on the bottom of the mountain, the fact is you may be on top of the mountain and think that Trinity was talking about you being on the bottom, and you might actually be the one on top.
Everybody is on the top and the bottom to somebody else.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, if you're going to do it in terms of finances, you know, if you're making $60 grand a year, you're on the top of the hill to somebody's making $20 grand a year.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and if you're making $250 grand a year, you're on the bottom of the hill if somebody's making $15 million a year.
Right.
I mean, you're on both sides of that equation. That's why I said in the beginning, define it however you want. I was just coming up with the analogy there, but
right.
No, I mean, I agree with you. And in that like the Parkland thing, one of the girls, like what I think was kind of lost in it though, was one of the girls that was out there preaching the hardest about it, admitted to bullying the kid. Right. It's like, you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like they don't care until hindsight. It's like, well, had you been this empathetic prior to, who knows what would have happened?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm just trying to bring out the idea, the concept of empathy, man. Like, stop thinking you're the only one that suffers. Right. Stop thinking you're the only one with a story. Stop thinking that your perspective or your desires are the only ones that matter. Stop, because they're not. You know, and I think that's kind of where we like. I see on my Facebook all the time, I see people putting up there, well, if you don't like me my worst, you know, all these other things, and, you know, like, well, hold up, dude. Like, that means if you want somebody to like you at your worst, that means you got to like somebody else at their worst as well.
Right.
And if you're not willing to do that, then why should anybody be willing to do that to you?
Right.
And that's what we don't get out of our heads sometimes.
Well, a perfect example is, you know, when I got kicked out of my high school, the way I got kicked out, even though they graduated me, if I wouldn't have had the father and mother that I have, with the love that I had and the respect towards them that I already had access to guns. I was already a violent person. It was a shooting incident that had me kicked out in the first place.
Right.
If I wouldn't have had the family that I would have had and the love and support that I would have had, I would have went back to that school and I would have took care of business. Yeah. So to put that in perspective, how life would be different, not only to the individuals in that school, but to me as well.
Dude.
Just because there was empathy, there was love, there was compassion that I was getting at home. So it was really hard to go all the way with the violence. It was really hard to go all the way with the aggression when there was that kind of love and empathy at home.
Dude, I got, I mean, I've said it on here before, but I'll say it again now, like my brief version of my story. My turning point that stopped me from being on my criminal kind of, you know, we're on Facebook, asshole life.
Yeah, you can
What
curse.
stopped me from doing that was 15 years old, I'm getting arrested for 2 felonies. I'm being told I'm going to jail for 15 to life. I'm on that path, hardcore now. And even then, I started questioning my decision-making because, well, I'm going to jail now. The only thing that kept me from that was the victim in the crime empathized with me and didn't want to ruin some young kid's life over some stupid decisions. Had he not done that, I would have gone to jail First of all, I would have gotten in jail until I was like 30. My kids wouldn't be here. None of the stuff that I do now to help anybody would exist. My mindset would have been probably completely different. All because somebody had some empathy for me.
Right.
I mean, some could call it pity. I don't call it pity.
Right.
I call it, he put himself in my shoes and was like, look, man, he's just a kid. He didn't know what he was doing. And, it's not that big of a deal. Let's not ruin his life over this. And at the time, he could have very easily thrown a book at me, and I think a lot of people would have for what happened to him. I can see a lot of people saying, no, throw the book at him, this stupid punk kid. You're going to learn, this very vindictive kind of tit-for-tat thing. And he would have been justified. And there would have been hundreds of thousands of people who would have agreed with him. Right. But all the good that I've done in my life disappears instantly the second you do that.
If we would have had social media when it happened to me, there's no way I would be here today.
Yeah.
There's no way, because I would have been crucified in the news.
Yeah.
There's just no way. The only reason I was able to walk away from that incident is because nobody knows about it. The only people that know about it are the people that were there, the high school, the victims, me, that town, that community. But if it would have been in national news,
I'm gonna butcher this.
There's no way.
This I don't know if I call it a story, but it was like an analogy. I'm going to butcher it, and I don't have it in front of me, and I don't want to. I can't do two things at once, so I'll shut up while I'm looking for it.
Okay.
So instead, I'm going to just ad lib it.
Okay.
But there was this phrase thing that I read one time, and I saved it on my phone somewhere, because I thought it was the most brilliant thing I've heard in a long time. They said something along the lines of, if you plant, a flower and the flower doesn't grow, you don't yell at the flower for not growing. Like, you look at what surrounded it and why it didn't grow. And I think that, to me, is the epitome of empathy. I'm not going to look at somebody and just get mad at them for what they're doing or saying at the moment. I'm going to try to stop and say, okay, well, what caused that to happen? And to me, I think that's the epitome of empathy. I really do. I think I try to ask myself why. It doesn't mean that, and the problem I think so many people get into, we got to get over this dumbass idea, dude, that just because I'm asking and I'm talking to you means I agree with you. Like, that irritates the hell out of me, man. Like back with the school shooting, you know how much hell I got? There's a lot of people who text me and had problems when I was trying to say compassion for the shooter. Doesn't mean I agree with it. Doesn't mean I don't think he should have been punished. Like, of course he should have been punished, and of course he was wrong for it. But just because you ask somebody why, just because you try to dig around to figure out cause and effect and what took place, what the circumstances were that facilitated this tragedy to happen, doesn't mean you agree with it. To me, I think it's the prudent thing to do. How else are we going to learn? How else are we going to create any change if we don't know what led up to the problem in the first place? If we just spend all of our time looking at just the actions, just the scenario, and reacting to that and causing problems, it's just going to continue to get worse.
Right.
You don't want to react, you want to respond, but you can't respond unless you know all the facts. So you got to learn all the facts, show some empathy, try to put yourself in that person's shoes, listen to them, listen to their mindset and why they did what they did, then make your decision. And I think that's what's going to help, man. But I don't see a lot of that these days.
And I think one of the important words that you're saying is facts, and I like the fact that there's a new phrase out there, and it sounds funny, and we make fun of it, and we think those two words can't go together. Alternative facts.
Yeah.
I just think that what if my facts are not facts? And so by having the phrase alternative facts out there, I'm going to use it differently than how we use it and how we play with it. I'm going to use it in the way of saying, what if my facts aren't real? So if my facts aren't real, let's listen to the alternative facts. Yeah. Because even though that can't exist, right? There's actually, like, supposedly one fact, right? By definition. But I don't necessarily believe that. I think that we pick and choose little pieces that make it fit our agenda or our belief system.
Was it Occam's broom?
Okay.
That's the bias confirmation. Since when I believe a certain thing, I'm going to look for things that back that up.
It's just human behavior, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the one of the best things I've ever learned, and I've said the story before on our one of our perceived truth shows that we've done. But it bears repeating, and that is, you look at a flower, right? You look at the flower and you see green. I look at the flower and I see a beautiful, like, blue. A dog looks at the flower and sees black and white. Some other person looks at the flower and they have, like, this amazing color perception that we're not even aware of yet, and they come up with a color that we don't even have a word for yet. Who's right?
Everyone.
Exactly. And that's the thing that people don't realize. When you put it in that kind of a analogy, it makes sense, right? Because I don't know if anybody that's going to argue and say, well, it's this color. They're all going to say the same thing you just said.
Yeah.
But that all goes out the window the second somebody says, well, hey, this is happening.
Right.
No, this is happening. Well, you're all right because you all have your own perspective on how it took place. So, and somewhere in there is a compromise. Somewhere in there is a solution that we can all get behind. But we will never get there unless you have empathy. And to me, that analogy is a great one for empathy because we all immediately, anybody who hears that story looks at a dog and says, well, the dog sees black and white, of course, because they don't see the colors. And this person's colorblind, so of course they see, they don't see greens. So it could be true. Like, that's how we got to start approaching things. They could have a point.
Right.
I might not agree with your point, but you could have a point.
Yeah.
And I think that there's another thing I heard, not to keep making points on points, but there was another a thing that I hear a lot, right? I've heard it in friendships, I've heard it in relationships, I've heard other people having it, and I think I know you've heard it as well.
Okay.
Have you ever been told by somebody that you understand 100% but don't agree with, that they say, no, you don't understand?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Yeah. No, I understand, but what you mean to say is I don't agree with you. Right. And that's what people need to realize. Like, not everybody agree. It's okay to disagree, man. Like, we can both look at something and see something completely different. It doesn't mean I don't understand what I just looked at. Right. It just means I don't agree with you and how you define what you just looked at. Right. And I think that that's just what people need to. We need more of that, and I think empathy is going to help us get there. I think that I don't see a solution out of where we're at right now as a country, or as a society, as a world, however you want to define it, without empathy. Like, I don't think empathy can be removed from the situation and still find a solution that's going to work for everybody. I just don't.
Right. And change is so slow. Yes. Change is so slow that sometimes I think we just have to accept that there's a process of change that is always going to happen. Yeah. And I think it's, call me what do you got? Call me optimistic.
Optimistic.
I am optimistic. But I think I think it's this, there's a natural evolution of positive change occurring.
Yeah, I have hope.
So when you get in the way and you want to speed that up, I think sometimes you slow it down. I think sometimes you speed it up, and some things need to be sped up, and I think sometimes it's slowed down. However, I don't think that natural progression of positive change can be interrupted. I think it's just going to keep happening. And you just kind of have to let time do what it does. You can't disrespect time. Time exists. Right. And so if you don't like the way things are going outside in your world and you think they're not where they need to be, then you're just not being patient enough to be the link in the chain that you are. So just calm down, relax. You may not see it in your lifetime. I really like when Martin Luther King said, "I may not ever get there with you." I think that was one of the most brilliant statements. In wise statements. No, I may not get there with you, but it is going to happen. And so that having that kind of faith and hope that if something is good and right, it will get there.
I can see that. I mean, it's a very optimistic approach, but I
just believe that. And the only reason I can be that optimistic is because Billy the Kid was a 15-year-old with a gun. So when I hear about kids today, kids have always been violent. Kids have always. You give a 15-year-old kid a gun, and tell him it's okay to kill people, and he did. So it
wasn't video games that made him do it?
Or video games did not make Billy the Kid be a shooter. But he was 15 years old with a gun shooting people. That is a fact in our history. So there's always been violence. There's always been oppression. There's always been one party taking advantage of another. There's always been racism. There's always been division. We are not more divided now than ever. We are not more hateful now than ever. Things are not worse than they ever have been. It's just we have this howdy-doody imagination. We like to believe that back in the day it was. No, it wasn't. No. It really wasn't. I'm sorry.
The whole phrase of "Make America Great Again," I've never understood. Like, at what point in our history were we greater than we are now? I mean, back when we were dying from coughs and colds?
Well, what we're not understanding is that was a marketing thing.
Yeah, of course.
So it's just like saying king of beers. Do you really think Budweiser is saying they're the king of beers? No. It's a sales tactic.
Yeah, of course.
So Make America Great Again was a sales tactic, and it made it, and it worked.
But that's what I don't understand is why people are buying into that thing. Like,
I don't know why they're buying into anything the guy says so deeply. They take his words and they take them so literal, and they don't realize the guy knows how to win, and that's what he did, and he just beats you because now you're angry, so that's why he's beating you.
Well, I don't know why either side is buying into any of the hyperbole or any of the propaganda that's out there.
Yeah.
But I do agree. I mean, because Penn and Teller did this great thing one time about not making America great again, obviously, but about like this whole idea that things were better back in the day.
Yeah.
Penn and Teller, they had a show called Bullshit on their thing. And they would always go do stuff. That's one of my favorite episodes because they went around and started interviewing people. Like, when was it better? Like, you realize back in the day we would get a cold and we died, right?
Right.
Like, was that better?
Right.
Or there was a time when the women's suffrage movement, they couldn't vote. Was that better?
Right.
We had slaves, but was that better? Like, when was it better? Like,
and for who?
Exactly.
There was a time where for the Spaniards things were great.
Sure.
There was a time for the Romans things were great.
But the point is, I think we live in a great time right now. I mean, dude, I have a not to sound superficial, I guess, but I have a thing in my pocket, man. They can tell me the time. They can tell me the weather. I can look up anything. I can pay anything. I can reach out and touch the entire world through something in my pocket.
Right.
And I can go home and take a medicine that can cure my cold.
Amazing.
Like, dude, we're in a great time.
It's amazing.
I just think that I agree with you in the sense of I don't know if we're any more divided now than we've ever been. I just think we have so much more access to other people's opinions and voices now. Right. And everybody's got a phone in their, like all these things that we see on TV where somebody's filming somebody call 911 on the black kids or something like that. Like, I think that stuff's always happened. It's just everybody has a phone now. Yeah. And so we see it more. Right. And so you're more aware of it. Right. But trust me, the people who are going through it, they've always been aware of it. Always. It's not like it's new to them. It's new to you, but it's not new to them. Right.
But you also have to understand that. Like, I understand that whatever I've went through in my life, there's no possible way you, Trinity, could have known that was happening. Right. So for me to now blame you for everything that I've experienced in my life and say, hey, Trinity, now you have to play catch up and feel guilty for what has happened in Louis Delgado's life, I think is just, it's not fair to you. And so my empathy towards you, in a way, is me understanding that you've had your own struggles, and it's not fair to me to compare my struggles with yours, because in some instances your struggle is worse, in some instances not as bad.
Everybody has their own cross to bear, man.
I think we all have our own pains, and I think just to let someone else's pain be their bad enough. Right. It's just got to be your bad enough. Just like mine is my bad enough. And then over here is going to be someone else's bad enough.
Who wins in the whole mine is worse anyways? Nobody wins in that.
Nobody. That's why I hate the argument. That's why I always hate when someone says, well, you don't understand my pain. Anytime someone says you don't understand my pain, it is you that's not understanding. It is you being blind. It is you not listening. It is you not being aware.
Pain,
and damn you for forever thinking that somebody that you think is on top of the mountain not feeling pain is not feeling pain. That is BS, man.
Pain is pain, man.
Exactly. And so just, if you want me to understand your pain, then you lead by example and understand pain. Right. That's it. True empathy is whenever you feel like a victim, stop, slow down, and understand that you've also been the oppressor, and you've also been that man imposing maybe a victim mentality on someone else. Just stand back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, just a very I can't help it, but what you said just popped in my head. A very trivial example, but like, and I don't know all the details, so don't crucify me over it. But like the Colin,
it's time for me to shut up. So you go ahead.
The Colin Kaepernick thing, right?
Right.
He was kneeling for the oppression of what he felt to be, anyways, black people dying in the streets and stuff. Which I can't say he felt. I mean, there's facts that it's happening, but. My point being, though, was he signed to a company, Nike, that's paying him an awful lot of money at the moment, and they've got their own track record of oppressing people in other countries and paying them, nickels and stuff like that. So it's just like, I agree with you. You got to stop. Like, you might feel like the victim, but trust me, you victimized somebody. Somebody else out there right now, no matter who you are, at one point or another, has felt victimized by you. Yeah. You might not agree with it, you might not see it, but then that should make you think, well, the people I feel victimized by might not agree or see it either. Right. They're not purposely victimizing you. I don't think anybody sets out their day to screw somebody else on purpose. I think it happens, but I oftentimes think it's just an oversight, or they don't really, or they're so out of touch, out of that lane, that they don't realize that they're screwing somebody over. You know how many times and all men, you can relate to this, all straight men, I should say. You know how many times, dude, I have pissed my wife off, and I have no clue why. Like, I said or did something, and she was like, "How? I can't believe you did." I'm like, what? What do you mean? What? I didn't know that. Like, I said or did something that really offended her or upset her that I had no clue. None whatsoever. But for me, that's part of what made our marriage great was empathy. We realized, like, okay, maybe I did. I don't know. Like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. So for her instance, being the victim in that role, she has to realize that maybe I wasn't knowingly and intentionally doing that. She had to have empathy for the fact that maybe I just didn't know. And then I had to have empathy in the fact is, who am I to tell you what's supposed to offend you or not? So it's like that same little microcosm. We're all guilty of it. We're all the oppressors and we're all the oppressed. Everybody. You're not exempt. I don't care who you are.
And that's how it should be taught.
Yeah.
That's how it should be taught.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I know, Trinity, as hard as it was for me to be in certain neighborhoods and feel accepted, and I felt that racism early on in my life in certain places. I mean, I remember going to that girl's house and her dad saying, "There's no way my daughter is going out with you." You know what I mean? And as mad as I was that day, I realized that if you, Trinity, would have walked into neighborhoods where I was welcome and accepted, you would have felt horrible. You wouldn't have been accepted, and you would have been treated very horribly. And so to grow old enough to know that on any given day you're the oppressor, and on any given day you're the oppressed, it allows me to at least pause myself and say, what is it that I want to do differently in this world?
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to be a link in the chain, then how can I be a positive link in this chain regardless? And I do know that the time for aggression is a lot less than I used to think it was. I'm still relatively aggressive.
Me too.
but I do know that my aggression is not really as justified as I thought it would be. And the only reason I'm holding on to some aggression is because it's one of those tools that work so well that it's just hard to put that tool away and to say I no longer need you. And that's very difficult for me.
Same here. Dude, even when I am aggressive, sometimes I stop and think, God, I should have handled that differently. Yeah. It felt right at the time, but I look backwards like I could have done more if I wasn't aggressive. Right. Having said that, as you point out, we are running out of time. We got to thank our sponsors. I got to do my tips, so let's get started. What? Sponsors first, please. Oh, yes, sir. We got to pay the bills, right? So, sponsors, thank you to Retreat Premier Addiction Treatment Centers. Fantastic facilities, good people. Also, Journey Pier, another great place with fantastic people, fantastic facilities. They're all throughout the U.S. Make sure you look them up. You can go to nowmattersmore.org, which is our other sponsor, to locate some of those places. Or if you need help, know somebody else that needs help, reach out to nowmattersmore.org or 833-NOW-MATTERS. That's 833-NOW-MATTERS. And then, of course, last but not least, we have the Orange County Drug Free Coalition with Carol and Janet and all them down there, and Eileen, great people who support us, and we support them and vice versa. And now we're at the point of the show. Let's do our 3 tips, right? Or my 3 tips, I guess, or ours. We worked on them together. So on empathy, to kind of wrap up today's show, the first thing on empathy I have to say is you have to understand there's a difference between empathetic and sympathetic. You know, there's feeling sorry for people, and then there's truly trying to understand their plight and what they're going through. And the latter is what I'm talking about. Try to truly understand what it is the other individual is talking to you about from their perspective. Not your interpretation, but from their perspective. Listen to their words, understand what they're doing. The second one is what you'll notice is a lot of times the anger and the obstinance and the vitriol that you're getting oftentimes is that person not feeling heard and not feeling vindicated. So you'll notice you'll diffuse a lot of situations if you listen first and then speak. And then finally, the third one is remember that your perspective isn't the only truth or the only perspective. There are people out there who feel equally as vindicated by their perspective as you do, and there's a situation where you both can be right. So you got to try to find that compromise and find that middle, and you'll do that through listening and all the things that we've discussed earlier in the show. So having said that, that's my time. I'm getting a cue. So now that you know better, do better. Peace.
You think he plans it all out? Or just makes it up as he goes along?
Human knowledge belongs to the world.